Is Jerry here?
I'm present.
Oh, right in front. Hello.
Yeah, that's me.
We good to go? Okay. All right. This meeting's called to order. January 18th, Gold Hill City Council work session. First on our agenda, let's see, are we doing roll call and the standard stuff? Jerry?
Yes.
Okay. Pledge of Allegiance, roll call, and then on to the agenda. Yes, no?
Yes. Gary, you got this?
Okay.
Roll call.
I take myself off mute. Mayor Studebaker,
Here.
Councillor Bichon,
Here.
Councillor Hickey,
Here.
Councillor Rigney, Councillor Rigney,
I'm having a little bit of problem with my audio too, I assume. I am here.
okay. Councillor Palmer,
Here.
Councillor Wilson is not here. Councillor Gina.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Excellent. Pledge of Allegiance.
Wait. Don't we have to have a quorum of the budget committee? Isn't this a budget committee meeting? So wouldn't we be taking a roll call and looking at the quorum among the budget committee members?
That's correct.
Okay, I apologize for that. That's Carol Holm.
Here.
And Mark Warwick
Here.
and Larry Holm.
He's here.
Here. Someplace.
Okay.
Okay, we have our working quorum. Gary?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Now, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, on to our agenda. Our first item is public input. So we want to do this. We've got, what, a couple of hours split up between a discussion of committee goals and then the MERMPO funcation.
That's correct.
Gary?
Yes.
Yeah,
Mayor, the way we have it set up is we have 1 hour for the budget session with the budget committee to discuss the MRMPO funds. And then from 7 on is the council's work session for 2022 goals.
don't the expenditures flow out of the goals?
No.
So it doesn't make sense to discuss the goals first and then out of that dictates what we spend money on?
But that's council's discretion. Mayor, this was just a continuation of the conversation that we had back in November. As you remember, in November, we approved some expenditures from the MRMPO funds totaling $102,000 change. So this was basically a continuation of that meeting. But again, it's council's discretion.
Right.
Seems to me you have to open and close the budget committee and then proceed to, because the budget committee people aren't involved in the goal meeting. So we should have the budget committee meeting first and then let the budget people go, because they are not involved in goals. That's city council business. I mean, they could, I guess,
Well,
public
it
input.
makes zeros, yes, you're right. So we have Mark and Carol and Larry. How would you feel about coming back at 7? It seems to me it makes 0 sense to spend money without understanding what our goals are. So we've got to clarify our goals first, and then out of that flows what you spend. Carol?
Well, I think this is a continuation of the MRMPO fund, and we already have a list of items that have sort of been discussed, and it's all around transportation. So it seems to me that the parameters of this money don't necessarily need to stem from the goals that you might set later on, and perhaps you'll have some goals around transportation and it will fit right in. And personally, I'd rather stay now and be able to be gone at 7 o'clock.
Yeah. Well, I think somebody got it wrong, because it doesn't make sense to spend money until you know what your goals are.
Well, I think that's what
Are
you
you
said.
good to stick around, or do you want to, are you willing to come back at 7?
I think that comment is, I don't think that comment that you made is correct, because if that's the case, we shouldn't have been spending any of this money without goals for the city in front of us. And we didn't have any goals for the city in front of us when we took the 272,000 and started talking about it. And the list that we ended up with, we didn't have anything to do with goals. And now you're telling us that we need to halt in the middle of this process and wait for some goals to tell us, to inform us how we should proceed with spending this money, when the parameters of the grant already tell us how we should be spending this money.
Brad, you bring up a pretty good point with the goal setting first, but I believe we should stick with the schedule and the appropriate agenda that we've got going on right now, now that we do have the Mark and Larry and Carol here.
And Mayor, we may have a procedural issue, and I'll take the blame if there was a mistake as far as understanding what the desire was, but there may be a procedural concern. We may have people waiting until 7 p.m. to participate in a goal setting session. If we move it to 6 p.m., those people will miss their opportunity to speak to that goal setting session. So we could, again, it's the council's discretion, but I think that if we are going to change them up, we might have to have an entirely different meeting night to avoid any open meeting law violations.
Do we have anyone in the public input queue?
Not that I know.
Okay.
So it's really 3 here. Okay, well, I've said my piece. I think it's backwards, but if it's set up this way, let's keep things moving. Okay, public input. No public input. Let's proceed to the MERMPO funds. Jerry, do you want to sort of summarize what we accomplished last time and where we were left for today's work session?
Sure. As I stated earlier, well, first off, let me back up. In September of 21, we were notified by the Middle Rogue Metropolitan Planning Organization that we were receiving $270,000 in COVID-19 relief funds to be used for transportation-related expenditures and projects in Gold Hill. This was a one-time influx of revenue. It was an unexpected windfall that can be used to address city needs that could not be funded through traditional grants or anticipated revenue sources. Fast forward to November 1st, at the city council meeting, the city council approved expenditures totaling $142,020 Those expenditures are included with the staff report as an attachment. You should all have that. At that meeting, the council chose to address the remaining funds in the total of $127,980 at a future budget committee session and city council meeting. So that brings us to today. I have included, basically it's a worksheet. It's a living document that contains ideas and suggestions that were brought up during the last couple meetings that we had regarding these funds. And it's not all inclusive. If there are more ideas out there, those are certainly welcome, Mayor and members of the committee. But that's the working document that we've been using since November. And Mayor, I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Jerry? We've spent 142, we've got 127 and change available to allocate today. Is that correct, Jerry?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, so looking at the two lists of the 2 pages of the approved expenditures already spent in November and the proposed budget. The second page, the proposed budget, it looks like there's a top grouping that would come to about 108,000, and then there were other suggestions. I would make a couple of comments. On the top grouping, there are 3 things that I believe if we were strategic about this, we can get funded through other sources. The number 2, 3, and 4 items, the technical assistance for the emergency plan and the evacuation materials. We know that the county commissioners are working on that same project. I think at the end of the day, they're going to move ahead with what they come up with. They're going to take input from municipalities and their working groups, but they're going to make the decision. And that frees up 17.5 right there. The other item is the next one down, the buckled sidewalks on 2nd Avenue. 2nd Avenue is what, Highway 99, it's a state highway, it's ODOT's responsibility. A couple of years ago, ODOT came in and removed trees and repaired some buckled sidewalks. So again, ODOT can take care of that, and that frees up another $15,000. So that gives us 32.5 that we could spend on the lower groupings of items. Anyone want to weigh in on that? Malia?
Yeah, I thought that we'd already heard that ODOT has said they won't repair the sidewalks because the damage that was done to the sidewalk was done by the trees that we planted there. So that's where I thought we were on
the
those.
trees that they planted. Yeah, no, that's
I
not
thought we'd
true.
heard-
They did.
Okay, then we need, I'm pretty sure I remember Jessica saying when Jessica was involved in this process that ODOT said they would not pay for those sidewalk repairs. So we need to revisit that. If you're thinking ODOT's going to do it, we need to be sure that ODOT's going to do it.
Jerry, thoughts on that?
That's the story that I have as well, is that when the trees were placed there, regardless of who placed them there, ODOT basically said, Gold Hill, if we do this, you guys own it, and the city signed off on it. I don't have the documentation that says that, but that's the historical memory that I'm receiving from staff and others.
When is Tony going to be back? Because Tony was the one that was dealing with that about the trees. And I remember Tony mentioning that ODOT put that on us.
That's right. And that's
So
one of the people that
either way, most of the council members are on the same sheet of music. We need confirmation on which way that goes. So
Right.
we're not just sitting here going, duh, you know what I mean? So,
Yep.
Okay.
understood.
Danielle?
I would like to reassert that the technical assistance for emergency plan and evacuation materials, the county is going to look at the county as a whole and what's good for the county. I still think that Gold Hill needs Gold Hill specific plans, Gold Hill specific evacuation plans. I would also like to mention that everything that you want removed has to do with transportation, and everything that you want included has to do with parks. And I would like to bring up that all of the previous money that we approved was for parks equipment, as well as from 2018 to 2021 budget. Parks budget has more than doubled. So this year you're looking at parks budget being $197,000. In 2018, parks budget was $88,000. So not only is their whole budget now $197,000, they also received the previous $124,000 that was just spent. I think that what we should be concentrating on the rest of this money on is on non-parks projects for transportation that need to be done in this town, especially considering that they've gotten a very, very large sum of this money and a large sum of the approved budget for the fiscal year. I think we should be looking at sidewalks,
Okay,
evacuation plans,
you're
roads and
repeating
streets.
yourself now, Danielle.
Okay, you
Okay,
repeated
so
yourself
on the-
several times, Mayor.
Okay. The 142 that was spent, I think replacing 2 pickup trucks and a leaf vac for our public works and a leak detector, that's not parks materials. Those are what we need to keep our storm drains clear and run a city. So I think we're kind of overstating things to think that we just spent 140 on parks. Malia.
She had her hand up for a long time. I'd like to hear what the budget committee has to say.
Well, I'm pretty good with the list of approved items that we've already agreed on to purchase the 142,000. From my point of view, I mean, I hope we're not going to be digging back into that list, because I think that
No.
list is,
No, I don't think we should be digging back into that list either. I
yeah,
was asking about how you feel about the proposed budget for the remaining 127,980 as put together by Jerry there.
Well, I'm interested in what Danielle would spend the money on if she didn't spend it on the other things that are on this list that would be related to transportation.
On what I'm trying to do is make way for an expenditure that we've talked about for 2 years. And it is transportation related in that dry grass next to a busy road is a fire risk. And if we can get our sports park watered, turned it green, that will create a fire barrier. I think that's super important. We've talked about it for 2 years. We've looked every which way. We can't find the $40,000 to get it done. I think that we would be making a strategic error if we passed up this opportunity to use part of these funds to do that. I mean, transportation related is kind of a broad swath, as we've talked about several times. Mark?
Could I
and
hear
Rob, would you
Danielle?
please weigh in?
Could Danielle answer my question about what she thinks should be on the list related to transportation?
Danielle, go ahead.
Everything on the top part before it says other suggestions to consider, I believe I have heard enough of an argument that those are transportation related. What I don't want to see is things like evacuation materials, repair of buckled sidewalks, which are transportation related, gotten rid of in favor of grass seed. Personally, I think that the parks should be zero-scaped as we continue in a drought. This year's water that we have received we're not sure if we're heading out of drought at this point. And I think continuing to invest in what is a very water-heavy crop, which is grass, is not a useful expenditure of our money. And I don't want to see lighting and electricity for the library park, which is a safety concern downtown, walking through, and things like evacuation materials go to the wayside for grass. So everything before, other suggestions to consider. So bike trail repair, technical assistance for emergency plan, evacuation materials, repair of the buckled sidewalks, lighting, electricity for the library park, gazebo roof repair, and vehicle gates for the sports park, I believe are all transportation related and good uses of the MMRP funds or RPO funds. I believe that we've already voted no on other suggestions to consider, as well as we negated the grass and irrigation at the park at the last meeting. And that's what I'm saying that we shouldn't be revisiting.
I would agree with that.
Rob?
Mr. Mayor, and Councilor Hinckley and Councilor Beachhead, regarding the emergency evacuation materials and emergency plan, there's a lot to assess, and both Ron and Jerry can attest to the fact that there's a lot to assess regarding what type of disaster or emergency that we're dealing with, and also who has the jurisdictions over the evacuation routes. Now, we can control the city streets, but the only way out is a state route. That's why we have to, I believe we've got to do a little bit of further discussing, excuse me, and deciding, again, what type of emergency and disaster we're planning for. Otherwise, we're not planning for anything. You know what I mean? I know Ron and Jerry do.
Malia?
Yeah, I am concerned about the plan for the city streets. And if we want to just do that, and, then once it gets, traffic gets fed down to 99 or 234, then ODOT does take over. That makes sense. But I'm really concerned about the gridlock that will occur up, between 4th and 7th Avenue and Ambrose and, down to the other end. If everybody has to evacuate from that neighborhood all at once, that's going to be complete gridlock and people are not going to be able to move. I do want a plan for the Gold Hill city streets to be evacuated in case of an emergency. And I don't think it matters what kind of an emergency it is, whether it's a flood or an earthquake or a fire. We still have to evacuate. If we get an evacuation notice that says go now, it doesn't matter what it's due to. And I'm mostly concerned about the Gold Hill city streets and getting to Highway 99 and Highway 234. And I think that actually someone called on Rob Lowe before you started speaking. So I'd like to hear what Rob Lowe has to say.
Rob?
Okay, Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you. I'm appearing tonight on behalf of the Parks Committee, and I just wanted to put in a plug for the bike path, the city bike and pedestrian path, and hope that the funding is allocated to repair the fissures, the cracks, the places in it where it's failed, and then also resurface it. You know, it's been in use for 20 years and the elements take a certain amount of wear and tear on it. I'd love to see it serve the community another 20 odd years. I appreciate the fact the path is widely used by a very broad demographic. If you just sit out there for a while, you see that. And I think it's appreciated by a lot of members of the community. And I hope, it is, yes, it's called a bike path, but in ODOT's jargon, it's active transportation. So I feel it's valid to include it as a transportation related expenditure. Thank you.
Danielle?
I think as far as emergency planning and having our own emergency evacuation routes, that's where we should be getting technical assistance. Your guys' argument is that there's a lot to assess, which means that we should be getting an expert in evacuation routes to come and help us. Obviously, if there's a lot to assess, we can't assess it all on our own. And I think that that's where having somebody who is an expert in city planning, in emergency evacuations, that they could really come in and assess our roadways, our bike paths. Those of us on Second that back up to the railroad tracks, many of us don't have back gates. So if we needed to get out, our only way out is out of Second. And so looking at whether or not in an emergency situation, the route along the railroad is a viable evacuation route is something that an expert could tell us. There are many places in Gold Hill where there's only one way in and out of your property. And having an expert come in and look at individual properties, all of the routes out, would really help a lot of citizens in how to get out in case of a fire, in case of an earthquake, and knowing what is the best thing to do in those circumstances to save lives.
Larry. Larry or
One
Carol,
way out is probably not available to most people. When we were having the fires getting close to the expo, we were told to be on guard about it. I went and looked across the river and already the traffic could not move. So hooking up my trailer and going, it went no place forever. So I went and loaded up one of my rafts, and I could have went clear to the ocean if I had to, but I realized we can't move a lot of people. And but it is an option of a way to get out, life or death, but it's probably not for a lot of people. But if we talk, there's a lot of people with rafts and whatever. If it's not a water-related emergency, it's one more way out for some. Is all I'm saying. There are, I don't know how you'd get out of here where you had to hit the freeway. Forget it. It's stopped dead. 99's an option, but other than that, 238, whatever. But it's a pretty tough ball game. We're in a hole here, so to speak. I love the hole we're in, but it's just an option.
Thanks for that input. Ron.
I've had several people come in that do risk assessments for cities and stuff like that. One we have to plan is we're going to be at gridlock, because I don't know if you've ever noticed that if there's a accident on the freeway, which a fire or something like that is definitely going to be congested, everything's routed right through Gold Hill. And so what Larry was saying is gridlock. What we need is a rally point, which would probably be the school. And from that rally point, there's a place to have a helicopter land and start evacuating citizens out of here. I mean, it takes time and planning, but that is how a risk assessment works. You take worst case scenario and you build off that. Worst case scenarios, if we had a fire, how are we going to get people out of here? Well, we need a rally point. And our safe haven is our school down on 2nd, the gym. We have to have generators. We have to have emergency flights available. Everybody has to be working together on this. So I'm just letting you know, it takes time to build that type of emergency plan. And you have to get the county and state involved. That's all I got to say.
Thank you for that. And they will be involved. The two that have not spoken yet, Eric and Bill, would you like to add anything to our last several items?
I'll say, I'm sorry I stepped on you, Rob.
Mhm.
I
No
did.
problem.
I've got something to discuss with the Parks Committee a little bit later on too, a little ongoing project that I'm working on. Also, Ron's also absolutely correct. And having that assessment done is, well, it is very important. And that, again, a rally point, if it is, we've got time for a rally point, would be in really good shape, Ron. Go ahead.
Eric?
I would, my argument here is going to be, I would just assume see this money be spent on the streets and things like that. We have plenty of blacktop that needs repaired. I was on the bike path today and I can see fixing the bike path where it could create liability. Otherwise, I don't really see that as really that awesome of a spend of money in this particular situation. I definitely agree with Ron talking some sense into the escape plan. Just got to understand the big picture here. And yeah, that's kind of a good assessment. So, yeah, that's it. I would just assume get some streets repaired. My particular street needs to be repaired really bad. So throw some funds my way.
Again, thanks for that input, Eric and Bill. Jerry, can you weigh in? We don't really have any additional street repairs on here. Can you talk about, I believe we have 3 streets that are being targeted in our budget for blacktopping this year.
We actually have more than that, Mayor, and unfortunately, I don't have that information in front of me since I'm not in my office. I did read a list off of all of the repairs that were scheduled. I can get that to everybody tomorrow, including the budget committee. There were a number of streets that are on the books to be repaired. Unfortunately, I didn't bring that information with me.
And we don't expect you to have everything at the tip top. But there are at least 3 streets, right? I remember 3. So you're saying there might be 4 or 5.
Yeah, there was more than 3.
Okay, great. So Eric, you're right. We do definitely have some rough looking roads in town. Again, I'm just thinking strategically, if we can use this money for things that we can't scrape together any other way, we would be ahead of the game. Anyone have any new thoughts that have not been contributed yet?
Mayor, I think
Malia, anything new?
Councilor Hinckley had her hand up as well.
Yeah. I think Malia was first. Go ahead, Malia.
Well, actually, I think Carol was first. So maybe Carol, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm glad somebody's taking note. Anyway, the issue for me is that all we've talked about is what we think the county might be doing, or we don't really know. So the things that Ron mentioned, yes, I get that those are wonderful things to have in a plan. But what we don't know is if the county is planning on having those things in their plan. And do we really need our plan? That's the question that I want answered, is that why would I spend this money on something that the county may already be planning to do? And as far as I've heard, nobody knows or has said that the county is or isn't planning to do the things that you all are talking about in an evacuation plan for the streets of Gold Hill. And I'm guessing that with the fire that occurred over a year ago now, and the people not being able to get out of Phoenix and Talent the way they couldn't, that perhaps those will be concerns that the county will be dealing with in putting this plan together. But again, I have no idea. And this has been sitting here now since September when we first learned about this money. And we still don't know whether or not what the county is going to have in their plan. And until we know that, it makes it really hard to have a conversation that's going to move us forward. Because as far as I'm concerned anyway, because right now I don't know if I should vote to have $15,000 for a technical plan or not, because I don't know if I'm going to be duplicating funds that somebody else is already planning to accommodate my needs.
So Jerry, could you talk about what you know as far as the county's effort, and let's fill in the blanks of what we don't know? I have heard one of the county commissioners spoke to a group, and they told us that the countywide evacuation with communication systems is on the top of their list. So I know they're working on it. What do you know, Jerry, and what can we find out?
That's as much as I know as well. As the communication part, yes. And that's basically, you register your phone number for a group text or a message, a group message from the county. As far as whether they're going to drill down into each community and develop an evacuation plan for the streets that are not public highways or state highways, that has not been disclosed. I've got a phone call into them and I'm waiting to hear back. I can tell you that, I understand that the city, the councilors want to address our streets outside 2nd Avenue and 99 and 234. And I get that. I do know that if an emergency or disaster occurs, the county is going to be the first people that we call. Myself and a staff of 3, we don't have the capacity to run a disaster preparedness plan. We're going to reach out to the county, and we do have a mutual aid agreement with the county, and they will come in and start doing what they do. They have an emergency operations center. They come and set up. And typically what happens with that is they read the need at that time. For instance, if a fire is on one particular side of the city, they may focus all of their efforts to evacuate that side of the city. So a whole city evacuation plan may not be needed. And that's what those EOCs are designed to do, is read the need at the time. They see where the disaster is occurring, they see where the need is at, and they develop that's what they do, is they develop plans on the spot to accommodate those evacuation needs. But as far as the county and what they're doing as a whole, I don't have any more information. Like I said, I've got my phone calls in. I'm just waiting to hear back.
Could we please task you with finding out more specifically what the parameters of their study and planning involves?
Absolutely.
Danielle?
I believe Malia was next.
No, go ahead.
Okay. As far as the emergency evacuation, all that I am asking is that we don't allocate those funds until we do know what the county is doing. Because what I don't want to happen is that we allot these funds to something else, then it turns out that the county is not drilling down into communities, and then the money is gone. And as far as new ideas, while I have the opportunity to speak, something that I talked with Rob Lowe, Councillor Beachside, and the city manager, Jerry, about the other day, that I would actually like to expand on is the gazebo roof repair, because I do see that as transportation related. I would like to look into how much it would cost to put solar panels on those roofs and to put charging stations into the gazebos, so that while people are sitting there, They can use those gazebos to charge their phones, their electric devices while they're running and using the bike paths and things like that. I think that that would be a good way to get green energy into the parks and potentially get more funding for the gazebo roofs, potentially from EPA sources, solar panel discounts and things like that that are being run here in Oregon. But if there is any additional monies, I would like to consider giving that money to better gazebo roof repair.
Interesting point. Good idea. Can we agree that replacing the wood that's rotted is top priority and that can be addressed immediately while we explore some of these other green energy solutions? Can you see that, Danielle, or no?
Oh yeah, I can see that. I just see looking into making them better and making them, bringing them into this age is something that we should also consider. But yes, the base roof repair, I do think is very important.
I'm afraid it's about to become very expensive. Eric?
I just kind of want to go on the record that we should probably think about metal roofing if we're going to mess with that at all.
And I believe that is what's being explored. Malia?
So I'm wondering if we are at the point where we're talking about other suggestions, because I have something to add to that, if I may. Okay.
Things
So-
not on this list here.
Something is not on the list, yes.
Can we focus on the list for now? Just, it strikes me that, okay, there's some difference of opinion. We don't know what we don't know at this point. For example, on the evacuation issue, are there some things that we can all agree on, like the bike trail repair, 8,000 and change? The storm drain for Swede, our largest employer. Think that's critical. Got to get that done. That's an expensive one, but we have a chance to do it now, $50K. And the gazebo repair for $6,000. Is there anyone that's opposed to those three? Let's knock off the easy stuff first here and then come back and think about what we have with the rest of our monies. So
Should we
have
go down the list?
128, that is 58 and 6. So that sounds like about 64. So that's about half the money.
I'm not clear on which ones you're talking about.
Can we go down the list item by item, please?
Well, how about if we start with the stuff that everyone agrees on? Does everyone agree that we need to fix the storm drain repair under Swedes for 50,000? Is there anyone that's opposed to that?
Wasn't there a hiccup with
thought-
that or something already?
Yeah, I thought that we didn't need, there isn't actually a storm drain under Swedes. That's a problem, is what I heard.
You mind reiterating that,
Jerry?
Jerry, please?
Yeah, thank you.
Jerry?
Yep. The issue at Swedes is still undetermined. Everybody is correct. When we submitted this initial budget, we were following the engineer's suggestion that we install a new storm drain running from behind Swedes on 4th Street all the way down to Dardanelle. It turns out that if we had done that, it would not have fixed the problem. I'm still in the process of trying to find the problem myself and Shannon, who primarily works with stormwater. So while we don't know exactly what the problem is, I can tell you that the problem still needs to be fixed. I don't have an estimate for the council or the budget committee at this time. It's going to cost, it's still a problem, but just by doing, just rudimentary testing, the solution that was provided to us wasn't going to fix the problem. The problem would have still existed. So I'm glad that we didn't commit that money or even complete that project, but we're still in the process of figuring out what's creating the problem.
Can we agree, whatever the storm drain, there's an active leak underneath Swedes right now, correct?
There's something that's causing water to back up into Swedes. That's what we're trying to figure out, is where that water's coming from. Initially, we thought it was from the hill running down to 4th Street, coming from behind Swedes and flooding inside of Swedes. We found that that can't be the case. The line from 4th Street into Swedes is blocked. There's no way. So it has to be from 2nd Avenue. Now we're just trying to figure out where on 2nd Avenue it's coming from. Something is causing it. We're just trying to figure out what.
Can we agree that the etiology unknown, whatever the source is, this is a critical issue that needs to be addressed, and if we can put some money toward it, we were not able to get the money out of our budget in previous years. That's why it's never been addressed. Danielle.
I would like to take the opportunity to say that Swede is not the only one on that line that's having that problem. It happens at my property as well. It happens along 2nd. It is an issue, but if it's not the storm drain, then it's either water or sewer, in which case that's why those extra fees are on the water and the sewer bill. And that would be the appropriate area to look for funds from, which would be the payings from water and sewer, not necessarily transportation. You can make the argument to me that a storm drain is transportation, but not a plumbing or a sewer problem. That's not transportation. That's why we have utility fees.
And just to clarify, it is storm drain. And I understand, Counselor, yeah, we have storm drain issues throughout the city. Unfortunately, this is a drain that's actually coming up inside the shop itself.
So it is a storm drain, not an
storm
actual plumbing drain.
That's correct. It's a storm drain. It happens during rain occurrences, and it's making them have to stop business because of the electrical concern, you know, people getting shocked. So, and it's flooding inside the actual facility. And it's very unique in that one of our storm drains actually runs underneath their property, and they recognize it as weird. The city recognizes that's unique. It should have never happened, but because it has, you know, we have a dog in the race because it's our storm drain under their property.
Okay, then can we say that we will reserve this Swedes money off to the side for future assessment of what is actually going on at Swedes? So like with the evacuation materials, it won't be currently spent and allocated towards something else and instead held off till we actually know what's going on?
And that was my intent.
You could have a partially collapsed storm drain or something downstream.
Yeah.
Of Swedes.
Yeah.
You know, that's just a guess.
Yep.
I mean, you can do TV inspections of that kind of stuff. It might be a possibility.
Yeah, the problem we're running into is the existing drains themselves are so dilapidated that we're having a hard time finding anyone that could even scope them. That's how collapsed they are. So you're absolutely correct. And that was my intent. I don't want to spend any money unless we have to. Like I said, that's why we didn't invest in the engineer's suggestion. We held off to make sure that what we were doing was going to fix it. And luckily we didn't. And as a reminder, and you know, full disclosure, this group also talked about the fact that we do have an enterprise fund for storm drains, for the repair and maintenance of storm drains. We do have that, and I openly admit it. It's not that much though. And I just worry about the next catastrophic event. And that's why I asked for this money out of this fund, just to make sure that we have enough, because I don't know what this problem is going to cost. I'd hate for it to wipe out our reserve in storm water. So the next catastrophic event, we have nothing. That's my only concern. But I did want to remind the council and the budget committee that we did discuss this at our last meeting.
Carol?
It seems to me the storm drain, it's the same issue for me as the technical assistance for the emergency plan. We don't know. And I hesitate to say, okay, for any of this money, because there's a bigger picture here. And if I spend money here now, but maybe I need that over for something that might be more important on this list in the whole picture, I'm not in favor of going through and saying yay or nay to any of these, because I need more information about the whole picture. That's just me, but that's how I'm feeling.
Anyone else on the budget committee want to add to what's been stated to date? Rob?
Not speaking necessarily on the budget committee, but I'd just like to back up a bit to the conversation about the disaster recovery evacuation plan. As a private citizen, I'm totally supportive of the council looking at that because, Mark and everybody is exactly correct. We'd be in massive gridlock here in 10 minutes if there was a catastrophe. It comes to mind, though, that, and Jerry, you can correct me, but I'm assuming the RV COG monthly manager meetings still occur. That would be a no cost to the city opportunity for Jerry to bring that issue up with his peers. It's all the managers of all the cities, plus typically Danny Jordan from the county is there, and maybe hold his feet to the fire a bit. Ask to get it on the agenda. And, what is the county doing and where are they looking at on a city by city? Might be a place to get some good information, again, at no cost to the city.
Right.
Danielle?
So we have 10 minutes left until our next meeting. Can we quickly go through from top to bottom on the list and see if there's a consensus, or is the consensus that we're not approving any of the expenditures this meeting?
Let's see if we can narrow things down here in the final 10 minutes. First item is a bike trail repair at 8.1 thousand. Is there a consensus? Maybe show of hands who would support fixing that?
Yes.
Bill, that you're a yes?
Yes.
Thank you. So can we agree to to move ahead with that? Bike trail, good. Technical assistance for the emergency plan, 15,000. Is there a show of hands who would like to commit money today to that? Or do we want to wait and get a full report from the RV COG? Those in favor?
I think we should at least kind of put a place mark on that money, like Carol said, until we find out. And that's kind of what I'm voting for at this point.
I would just like to not spend that money and have it reserved.
We don't need to spend it all today. I absolutely agree. I'm just trying to get through what we all agree that we can agree we want to spend on. All right, so we're mixed on the emergency plan. Evacuation materials, 2.5. Show of hands supporting.
I really think those two should be lumped together. I mean, they go together. You're not going to have one without the other. So
They do. So we're a little mixed on that. Let's get more information. Buckled sidewalks on 2nd Avenue, 15,000. Ron and Bill?
Yes.
Nay or yay?
I would like to get confirmation from ODOT on that.
Bill?
I'll go along. I'll second what Ron said. I thought we already discussed that we were required confirmation on the ODOT situation there with the sidewalk.
Okay. So again, that goes into the category of more information is needed. Lighting electricity for library park, 6,000. Show of hands. Bill and Eric,
I'm a no on that one.
I'm a no as well.
it looks like we have a majority that would like to spend on that. So I think we'll allocate the 6,000 for that. Gazebo repair, about $6,000, a little more. Show of hands.
Yes.
Okay, good. Then we're all in agreement on that. $6,000 with the price of wood, it's not going to go very far. So, but it's good that we have 6 toward it.
I do agree
Vehicle
with,
gates for the
I
sports-
agree with Counselor Gina. We need to be looking at metal roofs.
Mhm.
Yes. Agreed, that is certainly the most durable. It's basically 50-year, it's done then, but it's also the most expensive. Vehicle gates for the sports park, 5,000. So doesn't look. Rob,
If I may
Yay.
speak for the Parks Committee, there are problems with people going in at night, doing vandalism, spinning on the lawn in their cars, etc. I think it would be a prudent place to spend money. Yeah, I think something to secure the investment that we've got in those facilities is probably money well spent.
If I could,
Danielle?
if I could counter that really quick, I just don't see how vehicle gates in an unfenced park does a whole lot. Most of the people that I've seen vandalize things are teenagers, and they're not driving into the park. They're walking into the park with spray paint cans. So I'm not sure how vehicle gates prevent teenagers and people who don't have vehicles from getting in there. They just walk in.
All right, thank you. Malia?
I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree with you, Counselor. I live above the park. My house looks right down over that parking lot. Before the gates were closed, people were constantly coming in there at 2:00 in the morning. As soon as the bars closed, coming down and doing donuts. I've seen them crash into the rocks down there. I've seen them turn their cars over and then turn them back up and drive away. It really, I think we really need gates to keep people out of the park at night. It really opens up a whole avenue of vandalism and public safety. We don't want people in the park at night. An open gate is just an invitation.
Larry?
I agree with Maria. Anyway, thanks, Carol. Anyway, she'll correct me. But anyway, I agree. I've been down there when I was getting concerned when I saw certain people come up on their motorcycles and cars, and they had a whole bunch of stuff, and they all went into the old electric plant there, old power plant. And I've been down there before, walking in the evening, and they're coming in. They are coming in the Little League area and down in the boat launch area. There's people coming in. And the last thing I'd like to say real quick is I've been walking the park every day since I've been here just about, and I've never seen the park so used as this last week in a 3-day weekend. It was packed. There were 20 skaters and some of their kids and wives. Dog park, I went and used it myself every day there. Everything is really starting to be used well, and I felt pretty proud of our city and everybody that's starting to use the park. So anyway, that was unrelated, but it's pretty exciting.
Well, we appreciate Rob and the Parks Committee. We certainly agree that the park is looking better than it ever has, and has upticked with with all of that riverfront property, that is truly our gem. So I think it makes a lot to spend some time, energy, and make that as nice as possible. All right, so backing up, are we, show of hands, please, for the support for gates for the sports park? Who would like, and that's to the amount of $5,000.
Yes.
So it looks like we have a majority on that. So we'll go 5 for gates. And the final item, storm drain or whatever the source of the rainy season flooding on Second Avenue. We have $50,000. Those in support of putting aside $50,000 to address that water problem, show of hands.
Just to be clear, we're just agreeing to not spend $50,000 until we know what the problem is.
And I'll agree to that.
No. We're
If
we're not voting
further
on
study,
that. Okay, so right now we're voting on spending the money. So show of hands of who would like to allocate $50,000 to address the Second Avenue flooding issue. More information needed. Okay, so right now, and again, we don't have to spend all this money. Once it's gone, it's gone. I think we're smart to be prudent. We've got 8.1 for the bike trail repair, 6.0 for the park lighting, and 5 for the gates at the sports park. That looks like about 19.1 thousand. So we still have a sizable chunk, about 120 and change, that we can make some decisions on. Jerry, if you would please gather some more information on the emergency plan. And could we get a summary of what our understanding is, what we know and what we don't know about the water problem on Second Avenue? Maybe for our next council meeting.
Yeah, I could do that.
Did we not have majority on gazebo roof repair? I thought we had majority on that.
I show that we do.
Yes. Okay.
I'd already
That's
done.
items then. So that's 25K. So we've still got plenty of room to grow there, and smart decisions on this one-time allocation is a good thing. Okay, well, it's a couple of minutes after. Why don't we take 5 minutes or 6 minutes? We'll re-meet at 7:10 for the council discussion of goals. Thank you, Carol and Larry, Rob, and Mark for providing some input on these important issues. This meeting's adjourned.